Cool. Well, thank you guys for checking out the Real Estate Time Freedom Show today, June 2019, already almost halfway through the year. Today, Greg Dickerson is joining us. Thank you for coming on, Greg.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man, he is in. We're doing a little episode I was joking before we went on air, of coffee and comedians, where Greg's in his car rolling around. I'm here in my home office.
Yeah, I'm in my mobile office. I work out of the house too, and then I get out and go check out on projects and look for deals and check out properties, and yeah, so I'm always on the road.
Awesome, man. And a ton of experience. So, guys, here's a quick bio on Greg for those of you guys who are listening. He is a serial entrepreneur, real estate developer, coach, and mentor. Over 20 years experience. He's bought and developed and sold over $200 million in real estate, built and renovated hundreds of custom homes and commercial buildings, and started 12 different companies from the ground up. So I know one of our biggest topics we talk about is team building, hiring, team structure, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
We can definitely get Greg to touch on that. He's also an expert on the topics of real estate investing, development, and entrepreneurship. He's spoken at industry conferences and mastermind events all around the country. He's been a guest commentator on Fox Business with Neil Cavuto and the Dave Ramsey Show, two popular shows there, and is regularly interviewed on some of the top real estate investing and business podcasts today. Appreciate your service, Greg, serving in the Navy right out of high school, and is also a leader in the community, serving on the boards of several churches, ministries, and NPOs. And currently, I'll open it up to Greg to talk about this more. Currently, Greg is coaching some of the top investors in the country, syndicators, and developers as well.
Yeah. So So I do some coaching and mentoring, and I work with people at different levels. I've got some of the top syndicators out there that are real popular. I've got a couple of wholesalers doing 200-300 deals a year. Wholesalers and flippers and things like that. And then I have some businesses that I'm involved with as well. When I did the 12 companies and grew my own business, I did it in 7 years. I started at my first year was $250,000 in sales. I was a remodeling handyman guy. That's how I got started in the business back in 1997. I grew that to a $30 million company in 7 years. And I started 12 other companies along the way. And they were all different businesses. They were related to the real estate and construction industry, but they were all different. And again, I went in the Navy right out of high school, no college education at all. And I was able to do all of that by exactly what you said, building teams, developing myself as a leader, as a mentor, as a delegator, which is the most important step of all that, is that my superpower is I'm a delegator. I have no problem letting go of control, hiring great people, letting them do their job, and assigning, those responsibilities to others and letting them do their job and getting them done. So that's how I grew my business so fast. That's how I've grown all these other companies I've gotten involved with so fast. That's how I've been able to do what I've done. But I started with myself. I educated myself. I developed myself as a leader first and foremost, and then found great operators, and I coach them to success. And that's what I continue to do today. I get involved in companies from an equity capital standpoint. I get involved in real estate projects, and then I have just clients that I work with and coach and mentor on a yearly basis in their businesses and in their real estate investments as well. So I teach people how to grow, scale businesses so they can take the profits and invest them into other assets. And that's kind of what I learned how to do 23 years ago when I got started.
Very cool. Love that breakdown and a great concise nuggets on 20 plus years of experience in growing all these companies. I want to ask you two parts from that. I want to ask you, what were your biggest influences in learning your leadership style and capabilities? And then also, I just want to do a deep dive on your superpower of delegation.
Yeah. So I also have a restaurant background. And, so the military, you learn about leadership and you learn about delegation and chain of command. And the only difference is the military, when I was in, was a top-down leadership organization. And then I was in the restaurant industry where I came across a management philosophy called the 1 minute manager. And the 1 minute manager is all about developing your people, recognizing your people as your most valuable resource and your most valuable asset in a business, and learning how to help people feel better about themselves so that they will produce good results in a sincere, caring way, not in a manipulative way. So I embraced the 1 minute manager philosophy, and pretty much every management philosophy, every system out there today was kind of built off of that and on that. And it's nothing new. It's nothing that most people don't know. It's just presented in a way that they can understand it and use it practically. And what the 1 Minute Manager is all about, it's about developing yourself as a leader and a manager as an effective manager, and then developing the people on your team under you so that they become efficient and effective at what they do. And it's understanding the difference between a leader and a manager, right? Managers manage, they make things happen. Leaders inspire results out of managers. So that's really the fundamental difference between a leader and a manager. And that's the philosophy that I embraced. And then I also read a book called Managing by Harold Janine, which he was the CEO of ITT back in the day when they were a multi-conglomerate, biggest, multi-conglomerate around at the time. And he had some, really great practical advice and instruction in that book that's still relevant today as it was 30 years ago when he wrote it.
Very cool. So a leader, I would say, and I think this is kind of a new age thing that we've talked about on this show, a newer age thing that I'm excited about because it totally resonates with me. Leaders are able to take into account emotions and feelings of their team and genuinely, empathetically care about them, not only as a person, but they realize that's going to affect your revenue, tenfold as you kind of been describing there.
Exactly. So the mantra in business has always been work on your business, not in your business.
Mm-hmm.
What I teach people how to do is work on the people in your business so they can work on the business. So as leaders, we have to develop our people. We have to pour into our people. We have to work on the people in our business so that the people can work on the business and the systems in the business, right? So, you've got a company, it's all about systems and it's all about, people operating those systems. So as a leader, what I do is like I said, the military and the old corporation, conglomerates was a top down where you had the pyramid and you had the CEO at the top. Everybody else was underneath the CEO in that organization. I flipped that pyramid upside down where the CEO is at the bottom. The leader is at the bottom of that organization as a servant. And he has to give everybody in that organization everything they need, the tools, training, systems, and support to be successful. But more importantly, clear direction in no uncertain terms exactly what's expected and when. Then you have to hold that behavior accountable and measure it to the goal that you set. Did I get the results I was looking for? Did I get the outcome I was looking for? And if you did, great, you reward that performance in public in a sincere way, in a way that shows the impact that behavior, that result has on the organization, how it's going to affect the organization, how it's going to make the organization grow and move forward. And if you didn't get the result you're looking for, then you have a private meeting, one-on-one, and you try to find out why you didn't get the result you were looking for. And as a leader, the first person you got to look at is yourself. Did I give them the tools, training, systems, and support to be successful? Did I give them clear direction of what I expected and when? And if you did and the person didn't get the result, then it's only one of two things. It's either a can't do or a won't do. If it's a can't do, then you may not have the right person in the right place. If they just can't do the task, not everybody's right for every role. So you got to go back to, again, the leader takes accountability. Well, maybe I hired the right person. I put them in the wrong spot. And if they're a won't do, then you hired the wrong person. You get rid of them. So you can't train attitude. So if you hire attitude and you hire people with the right kind of attitude, then it's just a matter of fitting them in the right role. Because just because they have the right attitude, a can-do attitude, and a willing to do whatever it takes attitude, it doesn't mean they're all right for the same job. A marketing person that has a marketing bent is not right for a role of sales. A person that has a sales bent is not in the right role for data analytics, right? So you got to make sure that everybody in your organization is cut out to be in the right role in that organization. I call it aces in places. You hire champions, you hire winners, and you put them in a position to win by putting them in the right role. And forget about all this, focus on your strengths, develop your weaknesses kind of thing. Forget that. You find people with core strengths, you put them in a position that builds on those strengths, and you focus 100% on those strengths. The one thing they're good at, you put them in a position to do it. That's how you create success. That's how you create champions, right? So, Tom Brady, you don't see him playing running back or wide receiver, right, to develop his weaknesses. Tom Brady throws touchdowns, right? So if you want to build a winning organization and you want to create success fast, you find the Tom Bradys and you let them do what they're good at doing.
Absolutely. And you stay as the Bill Belichick or the Robert Kraft who moves all the pieces there, but is still very much in the day-to-day, takes care of his team, cares about his team, hangs out with their family, everything like that.
Exactly.
I think it's an interesting balance too. As I've gone down this path of, self-mastery, which I know is a life journey, it's really about consistent behaviors. And being able to like kind of have you been describing, you did an amazing job describing that from a high level. It's kind of an interesting paradox of emotionally being so involved with yourself and your team, but then also being able to look at your performance on a daily, weekly, monthly basis with all emotions removed and just see, yes, did I accomplish this? No, did I accomplish this? What type of adjustments do I need to make, including team roles, projects, everything like that. So I
Yeah,
could talk.
exactly. It boils down to the data, right? So you're either
Mm-hmm.
getting the result or you're not. And at the end of the day, as leaders, we are responsible for everything in that organization. So if we're not getting a result that we're looking for, we have to look at ourselves first and then break it down from there. So it keeps the emotion out of it. We're looking at the behavior, not the individual. We're
Mm-hmm.
recognizing the individual on good performance, and everything that goes good in the organization is all about them. Everything that goes wrong in the organization is all about me, all
Mm-hmm.
about I. So that's the only I in teamwork is when something doesn't go right. Everything else is all about them.
Huge framework to have. And that's same thing. Like if we're sticking with the NFL, Tom Brady, that's what great quarterbacks do. Anytime something goes wrong, the blame is on them. It's a great framework just to live your life by too. When you say that you're responsible for everything, I can notice it in myself. Like my day, when I focus on that in the morning of just realizing like, I create anything that happens in my life, I'm responsible for everything. My day goes like completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's going to do it for you. And as leaders, we have to give everybody what they need. We have to serve that organization. We have to provide them what they need. And when you do that, people flourish and they thrive and the organization runs itself. And I always say the true mark of a great leader is how well the organization runs without them. Now, I'm not saying that you can build a business that you never have to be there, right? So there's a little thing out there especially in the real estate investing world where everybody's trying to build this business and you never have to be there. You only have to work 2 hours a
Mm-hmm.
week. Yeah, it's just silly. If you're going to have a successful business, you're going to be there. You're going to be putting time in. You're going to have to pay attention. Now, you might be able to go away. You might be able to go take trips. You might be able to travel, do things, but you can't, completely walk away from an organization, unless you've got really, really super sound people, but it still needs a leader to keep it on track, to keep it focused, to inspire. Again, leadership is all about inspiring results out of others. So you have to lead, motivate, delegate. That's what you got to become to build that organization that provides you with freedom to do the things that you want to do, but you're never going to be able to build a big organization and not pay attention to it and just completely walk away from it, and nor should that be your goal. If you're going to be, in that position, then you've got to sell it or you got to bring a partner on to run it. Somebody's got to be there day to day to lead that organization. So you might be able to find that person, and you might be able to put that person into place and you can automate a lot of things, but you still got to pay attention. If you're responsible, if it's your organization, you still have to pay attention. You still have to reward good performance, set the standards, hold people accountable, and measure and keep an eye on the metrics.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one mindset, not to speak badly on real estate investors by any means, but I think that's one mindset that people come into this business with, or the first few years, the beginning stage of their business, they come in with of the mindset of, I want to build this so I never have to be involved in it again. I don't
Yeah.
think that's necessarily a great mindset, as obviously you agree, for investors to start a real estate business with.
Yeah. It's just too many moving parts. There's too many
Mm-hmm.
people involved. It takes consistent, leadership. And again, you might be able to find somebody that can run that for you and take care of that for you, but you still have to work with them, develop them, pour into them. So yeah, you never want to go into the business of the mindset that I'm creating this business so I don't have to work. I mean, that's just silly. It's always going to be work. There's always going to be responsibility. There's always going to be accountability, unless you're just passively investing in things, in somebody else's deals and they handle everything. Then you don't have to work at all. But as long as there's a business and there's people and there's an organization, you're going to have to, somebody's got to be responsible and keep track of it. Now, again, you could still do that from afar. You can log in somewhere and check things and keep track of things, but you still got to be there and be responsible, be accountable. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can still have a great life, have freedom, and still check in every day for a few hours, whatever, and be fine. But yeah, you're not going to build something and automate something to where it's going to completely run all day, every day without you, and you never have to do another thing. That's just not going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah, and you might lose some fulfillment. Be careful what you wish for. I don't know what I would do. I hope I'm
Yeah.
still working or providing value. After I'm completely financially free.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm out every day, right? I get up and I can't just sit around the house or go to
Mm-mm.
an office. I mean, I've had an office my whole career for my people. I'm never in there. I'm out in the field meeting, making contacts, having meetings, looking at projects. I'm involved in different organizations. I mean, it's just, for me, that's just the way it is. I'm never going to stop. I'm 52 now. I'll do deals the rest of my life. It's fun. I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's an interesting overlap. I've had a few podcast guests that are either former military, police officer in that, that branch of government. But I think it's an interesting overlap when a young, somebody that served time becomes an entrepreneur or real estate investor, because it's almost like instead of going to college, assuming they went right after high school, like a couple guests, shout out Dan Tatofsky, Jesse LeBlanc, to name a few. But I think it's almost like a graduate course in discipline and leadership that is invaluable. And that's something that I've been trying to grow myself. I just went to community college, played soccer for a couple of years, and then finished getting my bachelor's degree, and then got into real estate investing with Dan, and then Investor Fuse. But I think that's an interesting way to get into entrepreneurship if you're serving in military or something like that, because it really does seem like a graduate course in discipline and leadership.
It is. It's all about leadership. It's all about, following orders, chain of command, and discipline's a big thing. I mean, it's like you said, it's every day getting up and taking accountability for what you have to do and what your responsibilities are. And not only that, you have other people that you're responsible for. So when you're in a combat situation or you're on a ship, so I was on a ship, everybody has a job. Everybody has a role. I was in retail, so we were in charge of all the ship stores and vending machines and barbershops and things like that, the laundry, stuff like that. We had to do our job so the ship could move and survive and do their things. And the cooks have to do their job, and the engineers have to do their job, and the weapons guy have to do their job. And where it really comes to fruition is in emergency situations, fire control. So if a fire breaks out on a ship, everybody on that ship had a responsibility during general quarters, which is when you go to combat conditions, or during, fire drills. If there was a fire drill in your station, everybody had a role. Somebody did something. So, I'm relying on you, Carlos, to do your job. If a fire breaks out, I don't have to worry about you. I know you're going to do it, right? You know what you need to do, where you need to be. You know that I know what I got to do, where I need to be. And together as the team, just like a block and clear the path for me, if you rely and focus on your assignment, then I know all I got to do is focus on my assignment. And together we function as a unit and a team. So that's what's really cool about military training, is that it teaches you self-discipline so that other people can count on you and you count on other people, as long as everybody in the organization is doing their job. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
From an outside perspective, now where I'm at, 29 years old, from an outside perspective, it seems really, really cool. And like I said, just like an advanced masterclass on that type of stuff. And I think one of the biggest things is that, and this is outside perspective, it just makes everything make sense to you when you're building these businesses and consulting and coaching with other people. When you're just putting people into place that fit their role, it just makes sense to you since you have that background.
Yeah. And, and it's a funny thing. So there's a whole debate about entrepreneurship and leadership. Are you born with it, or is it developed? Now, you can develop yourself as a leader as you go along, but from a young age, I was a natural born entrepreneur. I was cutting grass, raking leaves, going around the neighborhood, knocking on doors. I mean, I would knock on your door. Hey, I'm Greg Dickerson. I live up the street. I need to make some money. Is there anything I can do for you? I mean, no problem asking for business, right? And I started out that way. I always wanted my own business, always wanted to be in my own business, even in the military, even in, after the military. When I went to boot camp, I was marked as a section leader. I didn't ask for it. They came up to me and said, hey, you're in charge. Whenever I was in sports, I was the captain. I was always a leader. I was always picked. And I never asked for it, never did anything that I knew about that to give anybody a reason to pick me, but it just did. So I feel like I was just a natural born leader. My dad was military career, 20 years, went in enlisted, came out an officer. So I'm sure a lot of that was instilled in me by him in terms of leadership. I just grew up, with a military leader in the household, and, he was tough. Tough disciplinarian and tough guy to live with, but I learned hard work, discipline, I guess leadership, but he was not an entrepreneur, never did anything on his own ever, worked in the military his whole career, then civil service after that. And, that kind of thing. My mom, nobody in my family were entrepreneurs or self-employed. I'm the only one. So I don't know where that came from, that fire to want to do my own thing and be my own boss, but I've always had that inside of me, so is it born, is it developed? I really don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic to discuss. as far as like personality you're born with, stuff like that. With like my friends or coworkers, I talk about, I think a lot of personality, like when I was like 5 years old, I was doing the same thing, doing imitations of people on TV and stuff like that, enjoying making people laugh. And I'm the same way, probably be the same way when I die,
Yeah.
the day I die. But I think you can instill and kind of, auto suggestion programming your subconscious mind. I think you can try to instill things in your head, but for the most part, I think you're going to be wired a certain way, but you can
Yeah.
kind of guide behavior and action a certain way for sure. And the more consistent you are over years of doing that, the more it's going to affect your personality and behavior and stuff.
Yeah, and there's certain people that have a leadership bent, but maybe not entrepreneurial, and then there's entrepreneurs that aren't necessarily leaders, and then there's both.
Yep.
For me, I've always enjoyed coaching, so I've always taken a leadership role, and I'm the first guy to volunteer. So if there's a volunteer opportunity and somebody says, "Hey, can somebody do this?" I'm like, "Boom, I'll do it." So I'm not afraid to take charge. I'm not afraid to lead a group. If there's an emergency situation, I'm the guy that's like, okay, let's bust the doors down. Everybody come in here, follow me, that kind of thing. So, it's just the way I'm wired. It's just the way I am. But what I love, somebody asked me the other day, so I do a number of things. I'm a developer. I still flip houses. I build ground up. I do infill development, commercial, multifamily, residential. I do a little bit of everything and the business stuff. And somebody asked me, said, what do you love most? What's your favorite thing to do? And I said, I love developing people. I love finding people, helping them realize their God-given talents and gifts and unlocking their full potential and watching that light bulb go off when they do. I said, to me, that gives me more fulfillment than any amount of money you can make, any kind of project you can do. I love to build people. Everything I've done my entire career has all been because I've built people. I've poured into people. I didn't build any of the companies that I've been involved with my career. Other people did that I coached and mentored. I did it through them. I mean, all the other companies I had, I never showed up one day in those companies and went to work. I did it all on the road, on my phone, coaching them, telling them what to do, and then they went and executed on it until they could do it on their own, and then they would just call me for backup. And that's what fills me. That's what I get a kick out of, and I've always been like that, even as a kid. So it's an interesting thing.
I love that, man. I have similar aspirations to be like that. As I grow and develop, I'm growing this company here, Investor Fuse, but I have very similar aspirations. And the return on your time working with these coaching clients of yours, the fulfillment that you get back is going to be a huge return. Plus the amount of revenue that you're making. If you're not going to get the revenue exactly 100% from their business or anything like that, but just the return that you're getting from a fulfillment standpoint and the money that you're helping them make is unmatched.
It's cool. And a lot of them are high profile and they have their own coaching programs, so I'm influencing the influencers, I'm coaching the coaches. So what's really cool about a lot of that is I get a lot of what's working at the highest levels of the industry, the guys that are doing 200, 300, 400 deals a year, flipping and wholesaling. I hear what they're doing and, I get to work with them in terms of what they're doing and help them with that. And with them, it's more organizational than, the metrics and the fundamentals are the same. Mail's mail, internet's internet, leads are leads. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of building out that organization and managing and leading people effectively to service the amount of leads you're generating. With your system, it's predictable. You put $100,000 in, you're going to get $200,000 out or whatever it is. It's a pretty simple business. Where people have trouble is fulfilling the leads that they're generating. That's where the trouble is. That's where the breakdown is. So it's really cool working with people at the high levels and then helping people get to those higher levels. And then I've got somebody in the multifamily world that's very high profile. He's got a coaching program, written some books and a podcast and all that. And, he's influencing a lot of people. So what I work with him transfers down into what he's doing with his clients, So it's really cool. And in the nonprofit world, I work with a lot of churches and pastors and youth groups and things like that. And, you influence the leaders and the influencers, and then the butterfly effect and the trickle effect is really, what I love is, like, I had one of my clients the other day who was a high-level flipper wholesaler that's transitioned to the multifamily world. And he sent me a text the other day thanking me for one of the calls that we had. And he said, that one phone call has changed my life. He said, just switching my mindset and having me focus on the one thing that I really wanted to do. He said, that's what I've done. I've automated my business. I'm doing this now. my life has changed totally just from that one phone call. I can't thank you enough. And, those types of things is what's really cool. And, what you live for and what fills you as a coach and a mentor. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. Very, very, very admirable stuff. Just talking for me personally. And I like that. I mean, the more that you have your ear to the ground, not even ear to the ground, you're pretty involved coaching. When you stay in touch with all these high level clients, you're able to see what's working up to date and share that with everybody else in those spaces. So tell me a little bit about 2019 as far as handling leads. I think that you said that may be the biggest issue some of your clients have, monetizing leads, something along those lines. For our community that's mostly wholesalers or just investors doing direct-to-seller marketing, doing flipping, wholesaling, what do you think are some of the top takeaways or insights that you've got from this year that would be helpful for people listening to this episode?
So number one is have a system to handle the leads you're generating. So don't go out and just generate a bunch of leads and just think you're going to be able to handle that without a system. You got to have a system. Even if you just have a spreadsheet and you're using Outlook or Gmail or something, you got to create a system to effectively manage the inflow of those leads. So that's number one, first and foremost system. Your system is fantastic. It handles it soup to nuts. It does it for you. But if you can't afford that, if you're not doing that, have something. Have a spreadsheet and have Gmail, right? Or Google Sheets or whatever they call it. So so that you create your own CRM until you can afford to get a system that is fully automated, fully integrated. That's number one. Number two is speed to lead. If you're going to spend money marketing, you got to answer the phone. When those calls come in, you've got to answer the phone. Now, in certain niches, you can automate that message, and you can use CallRail and other things, to help automate those messages. But if you're doing bandit signs, if you're doing just general motivated seller leads that are, the standard stuff, man, you got to be ready to answer the phone because they're just flipping through the mail, right? They're just throwing cards down and they're calling. Whoever answers that call, just like for real estate agents, 90% of the people do business with the first agent they talk to. So you got to be speed to lead. You got to answer the phone. And the third most important thing is follow up and follow through, which is what your system is geared towards, right? It's more about follow up than anything else. I'm telling you, I get deals 1 year, 3 years, 5 years down the road all the time from people I contacted, years before that saved my information or whatever. Follow up and follow through. Stay on people. And there is no magic rule, 6 touches, 7 touches, 10. You got to be in front of them when they're ready to sell. So if they're not ready today, they're going to be ready at some point. Everybody liquidates sooner or later. If they're a motivated seller, if they're in a distressed situation, sooner or later they're going to have to sell. If they're not motivated, then they're just older. If you're marketing, elderly people with equity, at some point they're going to sell. So you just got to stay on top of them, stay in front of them, and you don't have to be burdensome. Just check in. Hey, Mr. Jones, I hope all is well. Just calling to say hello. If I can do anything for you, just keep me in mind. I'm here. Just want to let you know I'm still here, still doing what I do, still buying houses, So it doesn't have to be pushy. It doesn't have to be over the top. Don't be afraid to use the phone. I've done over $200 million, approaching $300 million in my career, all through the phone, every bit of it. And, that's where it's all started. Now, maybe a few deals offline here or there, but, you got to pick up the phone and call people. And I know the younger generation's having more trouble with that for a lot of different reasons, and even some older generation people. But answer the phone when they call, follow it and follow through, and do not be afraid to pick the phone up and call people. People love to hear from you. They love to talk about their property. Just be polite, professional, be a transaction engineer. So whenever you're talking to a seller, this is the big one. Make sure you've got a number of exits. Okay. If you're not a realtor, make sure you know one so that you can send a retail lead to and get a finder's fee, marketing fee, whatever. You can't get a referral fee. You can't get a commission, but you can get a marketing fee. So make sure you got a realtor for retail leads. Don't let it go away. Make sure you've got any number of ways, whether it's a lease option, owner finance, just be a transaction engineer. Seek to first, again, you're a leader. If you're a wholesaler, you're a leader. You're leading your client, you're leading your team, you're leading yourself, right? So you got to lead. So when you go into a situation with a motivated seller, listen, just basically, how much do you want? Why you're selling? When do you have to be out? I mean, it's really that simple. Those are the 3 main questions you ask a motivated seller. And then you just be quiet. You let them tell you what's going on, and when they tell you something, well, tell me more, and then when they go there, well, tell me more, and just keep going to deeper levels. And then always at the end of the day, how can I help you? what can I do that's going to make this work for you? Maybe they need help moving. Maybe they've got an uncle that, doesn't want to sell, whatever it is. You got to uncover that. And always, whenever you're working with somebody or talking to somebody or asking somebody, always ask them, is there anything else I didn't ask that I should know or I should have asked you? And then listen, 90% of a sale is in listening, and letting them talk, letting them get the information out. How much do you want for the property? Why are you selling? How much do you want for the property? When do you need to be out? And what else can I do for you? So look to serve, seek to understand where they're coming from. And those are the big takeaways at the highest levels of the industry. What list you're mailing to, what keywords you're doing, what kind of website you have. Most of that doesn't matter. It's those other things that make up 80 to 90% of the transactions that get closed in the business at the highest levels.
Mm-hmm. And you see that, those are pretty foundational things of success in real estate. And also I would say in sales in general, to a certain extent. You see that being the same for the rest of the year and, for the recent time coming.
Yes. And in any business. Now, second to that is your KPIs. Okay. So you got to really drill down on what's working, where it's working, how it's working, why it's working. So you can tweak your marketing. There is no magic bullet, silver bullet, secret thing. Where the proprietary data is in the data and the metrics and the KPIs, which your system helps people drill down on. What, you want to track each piece you're sending. If you're sending mail, each piece you're sending, if you're sending 7 or 8 touches, each one has a different tracking number. If you're doing, internet, AdWords or, SEO, whatever, you want to track all that separately. Everything you're doing, you want to track so that you know what's working and when. If you're following up and following through, make sure you track what call, make sure you track, the interaction, the information, so that you can really drill down and narrow down what's working and where, down to the areas that you're in, down to the sellers and their situations. You want to track as much as you can about everything you can about that individual, that sale, that transaction, because that's when you start uncovering the patterns, and then you can start honing in and really focusing on certain things. So, that's the second to the other fundamental stuff. But even before all that, answer the phone, follow, manage the leads coming in, answer the phone, follow it and follow through, measure, track, and then you can manage. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And, business in general, and this is all stuff that works in any industry, whether you're selling cars, selling houses, selling software, doesn't matter what you're doing. These are all the same fundamentals at the end of the day. In your business, software as a service, customer service, technical support is your most important thing. That's going to be more important than the product itself, is how you service your customers. That's becoming true in almost every industry now. People are looking for service. They're looking for tech support. They're looking for people to answer their questions. So if you approach it from a mindset of service in any industry first and foremost, then take it from there, you're 100% ahead of a lot of people in the game out there.
100% accurate, man, as far as speaking for us too. But it's funny, software as a service, I like it's the acronym SaaS, or, shortened down to SaaS, software as a service. That's 100% what it is. We've come to see that no software is perfect, but the only thing, and another good mindset to have, is like focusing on what you can control, not on things that you can't control. So that's one of the things that we do is we have metrics on our support team of like how long it takes to answer inbound chats, how long it takes to emails. And we go over those every week and see how we can improve on the things that we can control. But I think that's parallel among any type of service business, like you said, which is 100% true.
Now, do you have that up on the wall where they can see it?
No, we don't. And that's something that I want to get here. I have a couple quotes right here, just from my personal mindset. We have like a spreadsheet that we go over, that we update each morning, and we post it like in a Slack channel because we're all virtual. And then we go over that like in a weekly meeting. But that's one thing I want to get, because I'm drilling down, because I do sales, marketing, podcast is the main thing I do for marketing. Appreciate you coming on, of course. But sales is one metric that I want to go on as far as taking lead on sales for us. So I want to be able to see that every day. I don't know if I want to move my whiteboard from my bedroom up here, something like that, but I 100% want to have something visual metric wise now that I'm drilling down more on that.
Yeah, it makes a big deal. And, a coaching moment. So what you need in your organization is a dashboard that's on everybody's virtual. So it needs to be on their screen when they log into their system so they can
Mm-hmm.
see real time how customer service is being handled, real time how sales are going. Because, as you grow, building out your sales team's huge. So you want to have that dashboard so everybody in the organization can see who's selling, who's performing, who's doing what. And it just keeps it fun, keeps it exciting, creates competition, and it helps everybody hold themselves accountable. And you can put those standards up there. So again, it's all about setting clear expectations, exactly what you expect and when, and measuring that performance. So if you're on a football field and there's no yard markers and no end
Mm-hmm.
zones, man, you're just running in circles,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you've got those yard markers, this is how many sales you need to make today. This is, how many call, whatever it is, and you've got that dashboard and they're looking at it, it makes it fun. It's almost like a video game.
100%. And that's one thing that I'm excited at now is we're getting like the CRM set up for our sales side to bring on. We want to do 2 new hires, probably Q4. So I'm kind of in the trenches right now, like making the processes and testing everything myself out now to build that out. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, you're infinitely scalable. That's what's cool about what you're doing. Your
Mm-hmm.
key is going to be the support on the back end. You're only
Mm-hmm.
going to be as good as the support that you can provide for your customers. So
Mm-hmm.
that's more important than sales.
100%. Tell me a little bit about, we talked about a lot of successes, which is always good. Tell me about some of failures or hard points that you had in your real estate career getting to where you're at now.
Not every business that I got involved with was successful. Some did better than others. Not every real estate deal that I did was super successful. Some did better than others. Whenever I step outside of, what's working for me and take my attention or my eye off the ball, that's when things can start to go wrong. I backed some guys in a restaurant venture one time and lost a bunch of money because I just, I didn't pay attention. I trusted them. I just backed them. They were high level guys from Outback Steakhouse. They had great training, but they weren't entrepreneurs, and they were operators, and I kind of trusted them to do things, and they just didn't know how to do it, didn't know what they were doing. And, I lost a bunch of money in it. So that taught me a valuable lesson. Um, and in my, one lesson, and I'll parlay that to, some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my company is taking people who I want people to grow. I want people to get to the next level. Right. And in leaders, that's kind of within you. You want to help people grow. You want to help people get to the next level. Not everybody wants to go to the next level. Not everybody wants to advance. They might say they do, they might think they do, but they may not really. So some of the mistakes I made early in my career was taking people that I thought had potential to advance and putting them in a leadership role or a management role when they weren't cut out for it and they didn't really want it. So, I put a couple of people in management positions early on in my building company that failed miserably because they just weren't cut out for it. They didn't ask for it. I went to them and told them and convinced them that it would be good for them. So the people that were the most successful that worked for me and then the businesses that I was involved in are the people that came to me. So that's one thing in an organization to make sure is if you're looking to promote people, they need to come to you and they need to be looking for more on their own and saying, hey, I want more and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to grow and advance. Just like I tell people just starting out and say, hey, how can I get somebody to take me under their wing? Go find the best in the business doing what it is that you want to do. Go to work for them, offer to do anything for them. Even if you got to work for free, just say, look, I just need an opportunity. I just need a chance. I'll do anything. I'll take out your trash. I'll run papers to the closing attorney, whatever you need done. I'll go sweep up when the guys are done, whatever you want. I just want to learn. So all of the most successful businesses I've been involved with had operators that came to me and said, hey, I want to do this thing. They were either in the business as a manager and they wanted their own, or they were already in business and they wanted to grow and scale. They sought me out. They came to me and said, hey, I want to do something. And then I took them and helped them go from there. So that's a big one to be mindful of is
Mm-hmm.
not trying to promote the wrong people just because you think everybody wants to advance, because not everybody does.
Mm-hmm. And that goes right back to the bullet point we were talking about earlier in the interview about personality and leadership, whether you're born with it or not.
Yeah.
If you're a leader, you're going to have a tendency to probably perceive somebody else as a leader because you think you can help get them there. But that's a good nugget there that I've never really heard before, is that you should really only be trying to do that with people that are asking for it.
Yeah. Let them come to you. Let them show the initiative. Let them take the initiative. And it's kind of like wealth, right? Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants $1 million, whatever they think rich is. And then when I ask them, well, do you really? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, do you really want to be wealthy? Do you really want to be financially independent? Because do you know what it takes to get there? Are you willing to do what it takes, whatever it takes, morally, legally, ethically? Work 16 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours a day if you have to, 7 days a week. Give up going to the movies, your Starbucks, hanging out with your friends. Are you really willing to do everything it takes to be successful morally, legally, and ethically? Well, I don't really have time to work 20 hours a day. Well, then you don't really want it. If you want something bad enough, you'll go make it happen. If people in your organization want something bad enough, they will find out a way to make it happen. They'll come to you and say, hey, I've got this idea. I'm willing to work nights, weekends, whatever it takes. I want that job.
Knowing everything that you know now, this is kind of just an off-the-wall question here. Not off the wall, but if you got stripped of everything and just had to start a real estate company from ground zero right now, from the bottom, how would you go about doing that as far as order of hires and marketing? If you just put together a company right now, just a full campaign, I kind of want to hear you debrief on that.
So a real estate investment company,
we'll say like a wholesaling, fix and flip operation, just to cater towards our typical listener here.
Yeah. So wholesaling, fix and flip. If I had to start over, again, I would go, in a hot area where there's a lot of demand, there's a lot going on, and you have to build it from the ground up. So you got to start yourself by doing things. If you don't have any money, then, you can call FSBOs, expireds, Craigslist, all the typical things that you can do that are free, to find leads and generate leads, go to real estate meetups, things like that. Talk to investors, find other investors that are doing deals and buying and paying cash, learn from them, find out what they're buying and where and why. When you talk to a cash buyer that's doing a lot of deals, flipping that you want to wholesale to, you can learn a lot about your market and learn a lot about real estate by talking to them and listening to them. Don't go to them and say, hey, what's your criteria? The little standard checklist. Go to them and say, I want to know what you know. All the way down to what color are you looking for? What color do you paint your houses? What do you put in them? What are you looking for on the streets that you buy on? What kind of neighborhoods? Is there a certain size? Tell me intimately what you're looking for. And then you go be that resource for them. That's really the easiest way to get started. Meet cash buyers, find out what they're looking for. They will teach you the market. They will teach you how to value, how to do comps, all of that kind of stuff. And then you go shopping for them, more so than just trying to call any random FSBO and then trying to go sell that thing. Mm-hmm. Go find where, so I heard an analogy the other day. If you're going to open a restaurant, like you just asked me, if you're going to open a restaurant, what would be, if you could have anything at your disposal, what would be the first thing you would want as a new restaurant? A lot of people would say the best food in town. Some people would say the best location in town. Some people would say an unlimited marketing budget, right? Those are all great things. I want a starving audience. So you got to go as a wholesaler to a starving audience. Find the people that are flipping houses, that are paying cash. You can find them at real estate meetups. You can find them online on Facebook. You can find them through real estate agents. You can find them through title companies. Call them up, say, who's your cash buyers flipping houses? I'm a wholesaler. Go find that hungry audience, find out what they're looking for, and then serve them on a silver platter. That's how you get started in wholesaling. You can start doing what you can do yourself. Your second step would be an administrator. So a lot of people call them a lead manager. What I've always hired in every business I've ever done, and what I would do there is you need an office manager / administrative assistant / lead manager / you need somebody who can do anything and everything on all levels for you and take everything off of you so that you can focus 100% on serving the deals to the cash buyers on a silver platter. And then as you grow, then you expand, that, and you decide, well, am I going to continue to do, face-to-face appointments? Obviously, as a wholesaler to scale, you have to get comfortable and learn how to do virtual sales and closings. You got to be able to buy properties and tie them up on the phone and not even have to visit the property. A lot of people say, well, how do you do that? You have to do that with your investor buyers. So you you find the deal, you talk to the seller on the phone, you agree to a price, then you send your investor buyer out and he does the rest of the vetting for you. So that's how you do virtual wholesaling, and on a high level and a scalable level where you no longer have to go on the appointments. Some people don't want to give that up. That's fine. However you want to do that. So then your next step would be, to scale, you've got your office manager first. Your office manager is your lead manager, everything else. In order to scale and grow from there, then your acquisitions people can be your lead managers as well, because they're either doing it on the phone or they're going out to the appointments. And then, that administrator can serve as your disposition manager until you get to a point where you need somebody focused on dispositions. A lot of companies will do it a couple of ways. They'll have their acquisitions, dispositions all in one, and let those people do as many deals as they can do, and they'll fill them out. If you're virtual, you can have people that are just acquisitions and people that are just dispositions. But once you've got a good core list of buyers that you're working with, that are going to perform, you really don't need anybody. You just send the deal to them once you get it tied up. So your acquisition guy can be your disposition guy, if he's got his core buyers, right? And that's really the way you want it. That's really the way you want to streamline it, so you don't have to have all these multiple layers. The last thing is ultimately to remove yourself. I know there's a mantra in the business out there to hire a COO. I don't promote that philosophy. That's a big title and a big salary for a small operation. Wholesalers, and that's a small operation. You're not a $50, $100 million company. You don't need a COO. You need a general manager. You need somebody to manage the organization. Hire a general manager at a reasonable salary, and then give them incentive for every deal that happens on their team. Give your teams reasonable salaries and incentives for every deal that happens, so everybody's incentivized. They all have ownership, but you're a wholesale operation. You're not a multi-conglomerate. You're not a big corporation. You don't need these big titles, because with big titles come entitlement, and expectations. So that's what happens in those organizations. When you call somebody a COO, there's something that happens, and it usually doesn't end well. So I always tell them, that general manager is your next step. You're the CEO, you're the COO, you're everything you need in a wholesale organization. And, and then if you start branching out and you're doing different things, then your organization can maybe grow and evolve if you're doing 10, 20, $30 million. But if you're doing a couple, 200-300 transactions a year, all you need is a general manager, a good office administrator, a couple of acquisitions people that also are your dispositions, and then you just kind of add those layers as you go along. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, very cool. No, I like hearing, even though we hear that general structure of hiring a lead manager first or an admin, then acquisition side, then disposition side. I still like hearing it, from the horse's mouth to someone that's uber successful in their philosophy on why they have it that certain way. So that's very much appreciated. I want to hear about that team that we just built. Tell me about your ideal meeting, as far as how often you guys meet, the metrics that you want to go over, everything like that. Because like I was saying, we're a little bit different since we're a SaaS, a software as a service for real estate investors. We have our morning huddles. We go off the book Traction for the most part the last couple of years, where we have a morning huddle, a 10, 15-minute meeting in the morning. And then we typically have one executive meeting per week where we go through those KPIs. But I'd like to hear a little bit about you, of how you have team meetings, things like that, going over KPIs, morale, leadership, delegation, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So when you're doing high level, high volume, you kind of need to meet every day just to touch base and talk about critical issues and things like that. So I like that first thing in the morning. End of the day, you want to set yourself up for success for the next day. So everything by the end of the day should be teed up for the next morning. So if you've got any critical items, you meet in the morning, you get those critical items taken care of, and then you're off and running, and it's motivational and things like that. KPI meetings are weekly. Whatever day of the week, doesn't really matter. It could be a Monday, it could be a Friday, it could be a Wednesday. A lot of times I like to end them, in the week strong, go over the KPIs for the week, so that you can come in Monday and you're charged and you're ready to go. If you're in a critical situation in your business, Friday, Monday are good days to do weekly meetings. Do them twice a week if you need to, one on a Friday, one, Monday, one on a Friday. So you can start strong, finish strong, measure it, do that kind of stuff. And then everybody in their departments has to put their numbers up. They have to show what their, here's my goals, here's what I achieved, here's my outcome, so that everybody in the organization is seeing how everybody else is intertwined and what everybody else is doing, right? Because in an organization, as it grows, a lot of people think they're the only ones doing anything. They're the only ones working hard. They're the only ones doing whatever. So if everybody's kind of putting up their challenges, putting up their metrics, and putting up, their volume, then everybody in the organization can see how busy everybody is, how important everything is. And if you got somebody who's not pulling their weight, they can't hide if they got to put their numbers up, right? And they got to present their KPIs. So in each department, the KPIs you're looking at from a marketing standpoint, whoever's in charge of that, the lead, creating the leads, they got to be, tracking what they're sending, the areas they're sending, the lists they're sending to, and those results, right? So those are your basic KPIs on your marketing. You're going to be tracking all your marketing metrics, including if you're doing any kind of Google AdWords or anything like that. You want to be talking to those people and finding out what keywords they're using, what long tail keywords they're using, what phrases they're using, and matching that to the leads that are coming in. Certain areas will generate certain seller leads over others. Are you getting more retail leads? Are you getting motivated seller leads? If not, you got to tweak that, track that. That works in some areas, doesn't work in other areas. So you really got to dial in your marketing. So there's all your KPIs for marketing. From a lead management standpoint, where are those leads going? Who's getting them? What do their deal metrics look like, right? So how many leads are turning into how many appointments that are turning into how many closes? And at the end of the day, I'm looking at dollars in profit over everything else. So I'm not so interested in necessarily numbers in terms of, lead flow, lead volume, things like that. I'm interested in how many deals are we creating, and then work it backwards from there so that you can make sure that everything is dialed in appropriately. So you got to track leads to deals to closings, and what does that equal? So if your average wholesale fee is $10,000, you got to make sure that you're spending an appropriate amount to bring that in, right? And you always got to track that expense down to that end transaction. Really doesn't matter cost per lead, cost per click. That stuff doesn't really matter. What is your cost per deal? That's really what you got to drill down on. Those other metrics are great to keep an eye on, but at the end of the day, what is your cost per deal? That's what you really need to be tracking. That's the biggest number in the business. If you're spending $2,500 and your wholesales are $5,000, that's not making a lot of sense. If you're spending $2,500 and they're $10,000, that makes a lot more sense. And if you're getting 5 or 4 or 7 and you're getting 10 and 15 and 20, you want to know where they're coming from, what area, what kind of house, what kind of seller, so that you can double down on that and track that. And that's really what your KPIs are all about. So lead management, what kind of leads are coming in? How quickly are they getting responded to? How quickly are appointments getting set or offers being sent out? From the time that lead hits the lead, the acquisition person, how quickly is an offer being sent out? So that's a good metric to track. If you're wholesaling virtually, that should be instant, right? So you want to track that, make sure that you're on track with that. After the offer's been sent out, how much time lapses between the offer being sent and a contract, right? So you want to track that. From the time the contract is signed, what's the time lapse between that and your cash, closing and your fee coming in? And, once you've established rapport with your, cash buyers, you can really reduce that time frame and working with your title companies and all that. But from a time frame, those are your big ones. Lead to appointment set or contract, appointment set to contract, contract to end buyer to closing. So those are time frames you want to track, and you want to try to compress those as much as possible so that you have a very efficient organization and operation. A lot of people forget about those KPIs. Those are really important. It shows you the efficiency of your organization, and it helps you really accurately measure what is one person really capable of, when you look at these time frames. So I think that's about it. I don't think I missed anything there.
No, that's good. That's a good breakdown. I like that KPI too of incoming lead until the time that they get an offer proposal.
Yeah. How quickly were they contacted? So lead comes in. How quickly were they contacted? Was it answered immediately? Did somebody call them back? How much time lapsed? Then how much time lapsed between that conversation and a contract? And if you're virtually wholesaling, it should be instant. You and I can talk on the phone for 10 minutes to 30 minutes, and you got to control that lead, that seller, right? Don't let them, some people like to talk. You should be able to, within the 10 to 30 minute conversation, have enough information to send a contract out, and get that done contingent upon your investor buyer viewing the property. So, those are the things you want to track, and it really keeps your organization running. Yeah,
absolutely. A nice assembly line of your whole acquisitions, dispositions process, and a nice metric that you can track at each point there, even more granular than I usually think of.
Yeah. It shows you where your breakdowns are and where your log jams are, so that then you can say, okay, I got to put a piece in here to kind of free that up.
So many people get into real estate investing, and specifically this show, the Real Estate Time Freedom Show. We like to talk about lifestyle design, entrepreneurship, being able to do whatever you want. For a lot of people, it's hanging out with family, friends. What's your best advice for people that are striving for that, for time freedom, financial freedom, everything like that, as they're growing their business? Most people here are pretty experienced investors, at least a few years. But they're on that path, as am I with the Investor View software, of going towards financial freedom and just trying to live the best life possible. Everybody has different backgrounds, personalities, but what would you say is your best advice to all of us out there?
So what I teach people how to do is to build, scale, and automate a business that creates cash flow that they can invest in other assets that pays them. So, everybody talks about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that book, in 1997. What I got from the book was that. I didn't get real estate. A lot of people got real estate out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I got build businesses that produce cash flow to invest in other assets so that you no longer have to worry about a business, right? So I teach people how to build and scale their business and automate it to the point to where it's generating cash flow so they can invest in other assets, commercial, multifamily, storage units, mobile home parks, whatever it is that you like, that will produce, as much passive income as possible. There is no true passive income. If you own an apartment building, you still got to manage it, or manage the managers. You still got to keep an eye on it, but that's about as passive as it gets. Wholesaling and flipping is transactional. That business is changing as the market changes, and with iBuyers and all that kind of stuff, and everybody getting into business, it's transactional. It's a lot of work. You and I know to do well and make a lot of money wholesaling, it's a hustle. You got to work hard, but you can scale it. You can automate it. You can get some good people in place. And if you're managing it properly, it doesn't have to be a grind and burn everybody out. It can be a good controllable business, but it's a high volume, fast paced business. And, it's not going to last forever the way it is. That market, that world is going to change, and it is changing, and it's all cycles, right? And, so you want to be investing in other assets, whether it's another type of business or real estate asset that pays you, that you don't need to show up for that thing to keep operating. And the only thing that really fits that bill are commercial multifamily properties.
Could I get your quick philosophy just on what you like as far as asset classes to invest in, multi-unit, storage, self-storage, single-family rentals, everything like that?
I like them all, but different areas are better for different asset classes. So multifamily is great, but it's a very sought after commodity right now. Everybody's going after them. But if you can get a hold of one that makes sense financially, those are great assets to own. I would just make sure that you're in the right kind of asset in the right area where, you've hedged against an economic downturn. I never buy any asset that's commercial and multifamily where I'm relying on having to raise rents. I know the whole value add play out there and everybody's after that. When I look at an asset, I look at it as I'm going to have to lower rents to be competitive. So I make sure that it works financially with me having to reduce lease rates, reduce rent rates, be more competitive, in a downturn. So that's what I look at. I'm a little bit more conservative. When I'm developing ground up, I'm obviously banking on a certain number of metrics, but rents cannot always go up exponentially on commercial and multifamily. You're going to reach a point at some point where enough's enough, people can't pay anymore and won't pay anymore. So they're all great asset classes. They all have their own nuances. They all have their own advantages and disadvantages. So it's just a matter of where you're at, what you're comfortable with, and what you have access to. So if you're in a small market, you have to broaden your asset base, which is kind of what I've done. I've always been in small markets, so I've had to kind of expand my asset base, which is good. If you're going across the country and that's your thing, then you can be singularly focused on the asset class. So if you want to do just multifamily, you're going to have to go wide geographically. But if you want to stay focused geographically, then you got to go wide in your asset base. And that's me. I never wanted to go all over the country. I like to invest in my own backyard. I'm in a region that I can drive to everything in the Southeast, from North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, up into Northern Virginia, DC area. I kind of focus in those areas. I'm in the car. I can get to everywhere I'm going and back home at the end of the day. So that's just the way I'm wired. It's the way I've kind of always been. And there's plenty of opportunity, for me in those areas. So, but I know there's people that like to fly all over the country and look at multifamily properties and commercial properties. And, that's great. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It kind of just goes to personality, how you're wired, and what makes sense, what feels good to you. Yep. Analyzing numbers and doing your due diligence. Where are you located again, Greg?
I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia. So I'm just outside of DC.
Okay. Yep. Cool. I'm in Baltimore, but I drive right through there, visiting family in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah. So, I was on the Outer Banks for a number of years. building, developing there. And then I'm from Virginia Beach. So, my network is from really a lot of Raleigh, Cary. I have a lot of contacts in the North Carolina area that come to the Outer Banks. That's where I met and, developed all my relationships over the years, all the way up into Northern Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, so I've got a lot of relationships and contacts in those markets as well.
Very cool, man. Yeah, I think I'm the same way mentality wise. I'd almost like to be able to drive to anything, any project or any investment that I'm working on. As much as I talk to people that do 100% virtual operations, I'm kind of the same mindset. I'd like to be able to drive out there or get someone close to me to drive out there.
If you're owning, yeah. If you're wholesaling, then that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can do that from anywhere. But yeah, if you're going to own something, especially commercial and multifamily, to me, I like to be near it.
100%. Cool, man. Well, this has been a concise, just value bombs and knowledge drops in this episode, which I greatly appreciate, man. Where could listeners get in contact with you? And do you have any, we didn't talk about this before we went on air, but I don't know if you still have coaching available or how limited you have that. But I'm sure people may want to follow up with you or at least check out your site to see more info about you.
Yeah. So it's gregdickerson.com. All my information's on there, contact info and everything. And yeah, I do take on, I've got clients coming in and going. I do a 1-year mentorship program. So I'm looking for people that are experienced, that are already in business rolling, and they either want to grow and scale what they're doing, kind of like what I'm talking about, to get into other things, or they want to get into other things. But, I look for champions to coach to success. So I'm looking for people that are sharp, smart, already getting after it. And they just need that extra help in next level coaching. So that's kind of what I'm after. I'm not really for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really what I do. There's a lot of great information out there for beginners, and I may put together something for them at some point. But I'm looking for people that are experienced, that have a business already, and they're looking to double, triple, grow, scale, automate, so they can do bigger and better things. So gregdickerson.com. That's where all my info is.
Very awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Well, Greg, man, very much appreciate you reaching out, getting you on the show here. We were able to get you scheduled between, Fox Business and everything like that. So genuinely appreciate that. Genuinely appreciate how you choose to live your life, inspiring other leaders, amplifying other leaders. And again, I aspire to be like that myself as I'm on my journey here, growing Investor Views and growing myself. So very awesome to have you on this show, guys. And I'm sure you enjoyed this episode. We will catch you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure, man.